show is brought to you by
Organissima, New York. Your exotic skin, hair, and beauty source, and your one-stop shop for all your natural and organic skin and hair care, featuring authentic organic Moroccan oil and prickly pear seed oil and much more. Bringing you only the best, straight from the source and proudly produced in the USA. So what are you waiting for? Shop today at www.organissima.com. Organissima, New York. Your beauty is our duty.
Folks, welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, with your host, Hurricane H, and a new day, new show, a new topic, but not a new guest. Actually, our guest today was with us a couple months back, and we've touched on a topic that is important for, the world, actually, I would say, specifically the ladies. We talked about menopause and, what is menopause and how it affects people and women specifically and the environment. But today we're going to take that to the next level. We're going to talk about, some of the things to do to manage the weight during this particular, phase, and how to really stay healthy, overall. So without any further ado, I have with me Alison Bladh. How are you, Alison? Welcome back.
Oh, thank you so much, Hurricane. It's a pleasure to be back on your wonderful podcast. So thank you for having me.
Oh, no, thank you. And I know we have a 6 hours difference, so we try to make this work, and we made it. So I'm glad that it happened. And really, just as I was introducing, I mean, we had a great show. We talked about menopause, and maybe you and I, we were laughing earlier about the fact that, people were like, well, you're talking to a host as a guy about menopause. And, we had, a little blessed about that, because I always believe that, men are part of women's life and women are part of men's life, and we need to be part of it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing not to talk about. I think, we need to be as clear about it and be able to understand how the dynamics work, because we interact with women, just as much as women interact with men day to day, right? So that was one of the little fun discussions we had, and there's nothing wrong with that. I believe that's an important piece. So, man out there, hey, it's okay, we can do this. So Alison, welcome back again, and I know last time we talked about menopause and the different dynamics of menopause. If you don't mind, just briefly, we can just break that down. What is menopause in general, perimenopause, and all that, and then we'll lean into the idea of some of the conditions that come with menopause and how we can do that specifically related to weight.
Yeah, sure, Hurricane. Like I say, thank you. It's lovely to be back again, talking to your listeners. So menopause. Menopause it's basically broken down into 3 stages, and it always surprises me with a lot of my clients, a lot of women, we still don't really totally understand what this is. We think we do, and when we come into perimenopause, which starts roughly around the age of 45, a lot of women don't. They just put it down to maybe their stressful lives, or they're tired, or they've got a lot going on. These symptoms just creep in there without you really thinking that you could be in perimenopause. So perimenopause is the first stage, and that, like I say, happens roughly around the age of 45, but it can happen earlier, it can happen later. And this is really where your hormones start to fluctuate. You're still ovulating, you can still become pregnant, but your hormones can be all over the place. It's a bit like a roller coaster. And that is really what can trigger off some of the symptoms, like the classic hot flashes, the weight gain, the irritability, mood swings, sleep problems. All those things tend to creep in during perimenopause. And perimenopause can last, it's very individual, but till the age, on average, 51. And that's when you actually go into what we call menopause. And menopause is when you haven't had a menstruation for a year. So when you haven't menstruated for a year, you are then actually in menopause. And that means that you're no longer going to ovulate, you're no longer fertile. And then all the time after menopause, you're actually in what we call postmenopause. And postmenopause is the phase that you will be in for the rest of your life. So your body does still produce a small amount of estrogen, but you're not ovulating anymore and you can't become pregnant. So they're really the three stages, but it is very individual on when these stages start for women.
Well, thank you, Alison, for breaking that down, just the basics. And that's a simple way to understand it. I think for all of us out there, it's, you got a pre, you got a, during, or the main event, and then you have the longer part, which is, I think, what we're going to focus on today, because the challenge is, when your estrogen, is low, where your body is going through these changes, the dynamics of how everything works changes. Your muscles, your fat gain, all the stuff, is a challenge. And I think weight management and weight discussions are just general. I mean, we talk about them in every aspect, right? Whether it's through fitness, wellness, health, nutrition, that's usually always a topic that comes up one way or the other. And again, menopause has a factor to do with it. It has to do with metabolism, it has to do with all these and the hormone changes in the body. So let's break that down to our audiences. How does that whole dynamic work? And then how can we potentially assist people or guide them to manage it well?
Yeah, it's such a large area, really. When we talk about weight management, we talk about perimenopause and menopause and postmenopause. There are so many different things coming into play here that, not all women gain weight, but it is, I see with a lot of my clients that is something that a lot of women want help with, because even if you've been, haven't had weight management problems in when you were younger, all of a sudden can just, you're doing the same things, you're exercising and eating the same foods, but it can just suddenly just creep on, predominantly around the abdomen area. What we have to think of here is that estrogen is what we call a master hormone, and it really is or does work with our metabolism, amongst many, many other things. It promotes good insulin utilization in the body. It really makes like a homeostasis level of all metabolic functions in the body. So when estrogen levels start to decline, like they do in perimenopause and menopause, it can lead to a lot of different functions or metabolic functions slowing down. So when we look at weight loss, some of the reasons that we believe that women put weight on is the one main thing is to do with insulin resistance. So this is going back to blood sugar balance, because estrogen is a hormone that helps us utilize insulin, and insulin is a hormone that when we eat carbohydrates, like refined carbohydrates, this gives us energy, and this is what raises our blood sugar levels. But we don't, the body doesn't like that. We don't want high blood sugar levels. So it then releases insulin, which is a hormone. And insulin is like the key to the cell. So it opens up the cell and allows the energy, which is the glucose that we've got from the carbohydrates, to go into the cell so we can use that for energy. But what can happen with estrogen, or the lack of estrogen, is that we become less sensitive to insulin. So this means, that the cell doesn't open up like it should, the key's not working like it should, and your blood sugar levels remain higher. And, if this is left, then we can move on to something called insulin resistance. And then that in turn may lead to diabetes too. The reason I'm explaining this is because insulin is what we call a fat storing hormone. And if you've got high insulin levels, because you maybe eat a lot of refined processed foods, you will find it very difficult to lose weight because it stores fat. Your body doesn't burn fat when you've got high insulin levels. So that's a really key factor for everyone in general, but it comes into play even more when we're in perimenopause and menopause. But one thing that I will say about weight management is that we can't blame it all on the menopause, because it's also a natural part of the aging process that our metabolism slows down and we lose muscle mass. And muscles, we want muscles that, they're so important to our body because they use a lot of energy. They increase our metabolic rate. So really key thing is to keep your muscles. Eating protein is very important, and doing strength training. You don't have to go to the gym for 2 hours a day, but really doing exercises that will help keep that muscle mass on the body is crucial for weight management. Because if you've got more muscles on your body, you will actually naturally use more energy. Our fat mass does increase as we get older, and we can become less active. As we get older, we maybe haven't got as much energy. It's very typical during menopause that, we lose our confidence. We don't feel as good. We're maybe suffering from depression, which it doesn't really stimulate you to go out and exercise or do active things. Stress, excuse me, is a key player in weight management as well, because of the stress hormones. Again, cortisol is a stress hormone, and that is a fat storing hormone as well. So there's loads and loads of things that come into play. Hunger hormones as well. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So wow. It's a lot of stuff you touch on, Alison, and a couple of things that are clear is that we have a little bit of exercise. We have a little bit of nutrition piece here. We have a little bit of non-stress that we have to kind of work on. But also there's, to your point, there's something that could be beyond this, because this is not, you can have, not everybody is built equal, right? And there's genetics that could be also involved in this process. There's also your history before you get into the menopause, right? I mean, whether you were active or not active, where were you, to your point, how much refined sugars you've been, intaking, before, you get to that stage or not. All these things can make a huge difference in whether you can cope better and what the outcome will be at that point, right? Am I getting that correct?
Yes, absolutely, Harkin, totally correct. It's weight management. There's so many different pieces to the puzzle. There is no, it's proved in research that fad diets, real calorie reduction diets don't work. Okay, you will lose weight initially, but then once you stop that diet, then you will start eating normally again, and it most likely put all the weight back on, and maybe even more. So it's all about mindset as well. It's so important that you really think, I am actually going to choose to eat nutritious foods, because weight management isn't something that you just do for a couple of months. It's a lifestyle. And it doesn't have to be difficult. It's just really healing the body and removing all the non-nutritious foods that we have in our food environment these days, and eating foods that, what I like to say, you want to eat foods that turn you into a fat burning machine. Whereas if you eat high carbohydrate, refined processed foods, you don't burn fat. You're going back to what I was saying about insulin, you store fat. So just being nice to yourself and realizing, if I want to manage my weight, I just have to be aware of what I'm eating and choose foods that are nutritious.
That sounds easier than done, right? It is easy. I mean, it's not, from hearing it, it's possible. We can all do this. I think the problem is we have habits. We have also conditional environments that actually we're part of. Even culturally, sometimes that's an impact. There's an impact there. I mean, if in some societies right now, eating outside or in restaurants and, outside food versus like home meals and home cooking is more, relevant and relevant. And therefore, people tend to eat, higher, again, you go, I don't know. I love Italian food, so pasta is kind of like a big deal. I love some other types of food where rice is available, and those are carbs. I have a sweet tooth, and I do a little bit of sugar here and there, You go to a restaurant, there's always a dessert menu, and you cannot say no to it. So it adds up to it. And again, your level of activity, to your point, whether, not everybody exercises at the same rate. I'm talking before menopause here, right? And even during and even post. So if you are used to doing certain things, and it's also a commitment and habit and almost like, behavior that can impact how well you do. Now, that being said, even if you had bad everything in the past, doesn't mean, I don't think it means that you can stop. You can start at any given point. But you mentioned something about diets, which that's where people usually get stuck, I'm just going to stop everything on diet. And you said a very key point right now is that diets work, but how long can you be on a diet? It's like, intermittent fasting works, because it is standard. I mean, your body is deprived from food and it just has to use whatever energy it's in body. So it kind of burns a little bit, kind of more or less the concept. But then, how long can you do this for? Is it a day? Is it two? You can do a month, 2 months, 3 months. Eventually something is not going to be right. And then you're going to feel that you want to go back to your normal, or you're going to stop. And then to your point, you're going to gain back all that stuff. It is a problem. I mean, this debate and discussion about diets and the type of diets, do they work and do they work by themselves? Do you have to combine them with a regimen of some sort of fitness? What kind of fitness? You said it. If we need to build muscle, you don't have to really, lift weights. You can do, resistance and training and all this stuff. So there's ways to do this, but it's all of the above. I think we have to think about a full picture. And really, you have to have all these foundations together to be really maintaining. Otherwise, if you drop a couple, you're not going to get the result that you want. And therefore, you're going to have problems. You mentioned something about stress. Society today, just by default, creates very stressful, environment. I mean, we've gone through a pandemic. We have a World War III that is looming around right now with discussions that are scary. People, whether we want it or not, whether we like it or not, it is impacting everyone, and we hear it, and people are not sure about the future. There's economic stress because this also affects the economical environment that we have. The environment is also having issues right now. So all this stuff is really a big problem that we have and we face, and these are real things. And some of them maybe are newer than history, because and maybe in history we have all these elements together. Every now and then these things pop up, but nevertheless, at any given moment, these things happen, and we have to deal with them. And to your point, and we're talking about we're talking menopause, but this is for everyone, right? But specifically for women that are going through this stage where the body is transforming, there's a change that is biological change, and there is an impact. There are certain things, there's functions that are actually stopping. There's things that are changing, and certainly it's gonna change. The way you have to think. And again, I can't speak for it being a man, but I can tell you. I mean, I've seen that, for example, with my mother. I've seen her transformation, and yes, she did develop, diabetes eventually, and she did gain weight, and she can never drop the weight. With exercise, with nutrition, with all the stuff, medicine is still not able to drop, and the weight just keeps going, and that's a challenge. So I've seen that, firsthand, and I know it literally. I mean, it's funny because don't laugh at me, but it coincided exactly about menopause, and we know about this through, because I take her to doctors and all the stuff. So I was aware of when that happened, and that's exactly when her diabetes began. I mean, literally, it was the same year. So I can relate to it from that experience, and it's scary to see the progression of all this. And at a point, she was still active, and she was mindful of her food and everything. She maintained for a long time. I mean, it's 30 years. In the making, but as she gets older in age, this has become more difficult. To your point, very difficult to do things and activities and even get out. Just once you get to a certain point, it's like your body is not helping you. The weight is also put on. It's very difficult, and that's not something we want. And I think from this platform, what our objective, Alison, today is to help ladies, not get to that point, to actually live vitality, happy, and enjoy those years and enjoy them to the fullest. So let's talk about that now. We identify all the different problems that impact that. Now, what is based on your expertise, what are some of the measures that we can do and ladies can do to mitigate some of this and kind of work towards a better future from that point on? Now, I mumbled a lot. Sorry.
No. I mean, it's a great question. There are many things that you can do. I think, like I said before, I think the first thing that you have to do is just say to yourself that, you know, I want to live a healthy, happy life when I'm in this next phase of my life for the next 30 years plus, you know, and you have to look after yourself a little bit more. And what you want to think nutritionally wise is, like I've said before, really try to cut out all the sugary, processed, refined foods. If you see a food like a package that has more than a couple of ingredients on that you don't know what they are, then they're not going to be doing you any good. The majority of really processed, refined food has no nutritional value. And I totally appreciate, and you said as well, Hurricane, that, you know, we live in an environment where there's just food everywhere, and it is processed food and sugary foods, and it is delicious. I mean, that combination of sugar and fat and salt, that, you know, these big food companies aren't stupid. They make these foods so delicious, so they become addictive. So you really have to be quite strong in the beginning to think, no, I'm not going to choose that. I'm going to buy a whole food instead. And when I say a whole food, it doesn't have to sound scary. It's just basically, you know, if you eat meat, it's a chicken. You know, that is a whole food. When you look at a chicken, you know that that's a chicken. It's not got a list of ingredients on the back. When you look at vegetables, when you look at broccoli or cabbage or whatever you're eating, it's just one ingredient. You don't have to make it difficult. You know, just buying foods that you know what they are. If you don't know the ingredients on the back of a packet, don't buy it. And I also appreciate that, you know, we all have to have a life, and none of us are perfect. It's okay occasionally to treat yourself to something delicious, you know, a sugary snack or whatever. It's all about moderation, and it's all about a varied diet. But key to controlling blood sugar levels and insulin is getting rid of all the very rich carbohydrate, refined carbohydrate foods that just shoot our insulin levels up. And that is, you know, if you get rid of those sort of foods, then that will be extremely beneficial for weight management. But another thing that you have to think of is portion control, because as we get older, we can't eat as much as we did when we were 20. You know, as I said earlier, that your metabolism slows down. So if you're eating the same amount of food that you ate when you were younger, you know, you probably will put weight on. So you really just have to think of not eating quite as much, and maybe not snacking. I think in today's society, we have a tendency to what we call graze all the time. We're like permanently eating, and our bodies weren't actually made for that. It's okay to have time between meals. You don't have to be snacking the whole time. I mean, intermittent fasting has actually more research is needed, but the research that's coming out is quite fascinating on, you know, time restricted eating, how beneficial that is to the body and also for weight management. And again, that doesn't have to be something complex. It could just be as simple as making sure that you eat your evening meal and you stop eating by 7 o'clock in the evening, and then you don't eat anything till 7 o'clock the next morning, 8 o'clock the next morning, because then that's quite a few hours in between that you're not eating, and that really gives your metabolism, your body chance like reset. It's fascinating what happens when you actually let your digestive system calm down and not, you know, work all the time. So snacking is something when we're talking about weight management that you really, you know, don't need to be eating constantly. When we look at food, a Mediterranean style diet has really been shown in studies to be very beneficial for weight management and health. And that is eating, again, whole foods, like your white meats, fish, vegetables, fruits, nuts and seeds, all your wonderful healthy fats, red meat, but not so often. But they just eat food. They don't eat all this processed, refined food with lots of very odd ingredients in. You know, your body doesn't recognize what these foods are, and there's no nutritional value to these processed foods. and then what you want to think about is stress management, as I was saying, because that is so, so important for weight management. It really is. If you're constantly stressed, which I appreciate in today's society with what you were talking about earlier, Hurricane, it's not easy for us, is it? There's a lot of things against us because majority of society is chronically stressed. But I think you have to really just sit back and think, I'm going to look after myself. Okay, there are many things going on that are stressful, but I have to try and manage this for my own health. Something like deep breathing, if you feel that you're getting stressed or overwhelmed, just sit down and do a couple of minutes deep breathing. So effective. Your body actually can't become stressed when you're breathing deeply because it sends signals to your brain that everything's okay. Drinking water, crucial for weight management. If you feel that you're hungry, it can also be a sign that you're dehydrated. So drinking water can actually curb that hunger. So it's so many different things that we need to put in place. But I think you really have to just be kind to yourself and think, I am going to look after myself. I'm not going to eat these foods that are non-nutritious and just will cause inflammation in the body and make me gain weight. I'm going to choose foods that are nutritious and will feed my body. So it's not about restriction, that you can still eat delicious, nourishing foods. It's just about choosing the right sort of foods.
Wow. Thank you so much for breaking it down. And it's amazing. I'm listening to you and you mentioned some key terms. One, you talked about the idea of whole food and some people, and you mentioned chicken, but you're going to get into that discussion where, chicken these days are full of hormones and they're farm raised. They're not actually free range, whatever. They're not naturally, so you're going to have that discussion. And again, I mean, that's a whole different topic, but to your point, it's still better than what's multiple ingredients you cannot pronounce. so that's one piece of it. And you mentioned something also about portions, and you're lucky you're in Europe. I mean, I think when you go out even to a restaurant, the portions are still decent. Come to the States and the portions are humongous. I mean, they're gigantic, plates. I mean, you cannot finish those plates. Most of us take, food to go after you finish a meal because, it's just too much. And it's amazing. It's part of it. I mean, you pay for it. It's all good. But the fact, to your point, when you have food in front of you, you tend to eat it. It's like if you have a full plate, you're just going to keep because you want to finish that plate, right? And we all grew up with them mentality, finish your plate, right? And so, at least most of us probably did. But the fact is, those are like key elements to your point. You can still enjoy things, but if the portions are smaller, you can actually indulge in those things and not have the same intake that you would take the other way. Also, you mentioned something about the snacks. And, again, we live in a society of snacking. Everywhere it's snacking. You go to any store, right? You walk into to pay. That's where all the snacks are, the sugary and the salty and all the exciting stuff. And they all taste good. And, you stand there, it's like that compulsive, buying. It's right. They do it. Marketing has designed that, for a purpose to be in there as you walk into that cashier and you're like, oh, let me just grab one of these and maybe you can snack even before you get to pay. That's a problem. And you're right. You're watching movies or staying home, you can just munch on some stuff. And those are in between. Now, that's a dangerous, place because to you, what you said earlier about, you not only you want to have your body kind of stop and do stuff. And you talked about, the intermittent fasting. I was born in as a Muslim and, so I fasted all my life and I know exactly what fasting looks like, for 12, 13, 14 hours. But one of the benefits that I do understand and I feel every time when the month of, fasting comes around is that, it's a great detoxification, period. I mean, you do feel the difference and there is no doubt. I mean, and I think that's part of what intermittent fasting is. I mean, we do it by default because we're, it's part of the belief, but really now it's becoming, a trend because of the health benefits of it. And it is interesting because it does give you your liver and all your functions the ability to kind of pause, and your body's just basically taking everything out that is not necessary. And to your point, if you do what you said, take the right ingredients in the first place, you have very little detoxification to do to start with. So your liver is functioning better, everything's functioning better. Now, again, I'm not an expert in nutrition, but just based on my guess and based on my research personally and what I do for me personally, just to keep, to keep up, and we try to do these things. You also mentioned something about the Mediterranean diet. And you're right, fish is healthy, the vegetables and stuff. Olive oil is a big deal, in a whole culture, level. And it's just multiple, diets or varieties of diets around the Mediterranean. And all those things work. And moderate stuff, again, you said it. I love what you said. We humans, we can cheat and we can have a little taste of something, but it's just in moderation. And I think that's the biggest, piece of here is that we need to do this correctly. We need to be aware of this stuff, but don't go one extreme versus the other. If we can combine all these things, as we said earlier about the different foundations, the life should be smooth. Now that leads me to one key element. We talk about food, nutrition, maybe even how to kind of de-stress, right? By the way, I love that what you said about stress. It's funny because I have a show on Fridays once a month with Dr. Heim and his psychiatrist, renowned psychiatrist. And one of the things we did the last show was we talked about stress. That was a question, and he did an exercise about actually meditation and breathing. And that's exactly his advice. Under stress, that actually changes the dynamics of how you be, and you feel. And so it's amazing that you said it, and we just did that exercise, and we did it live on the show, so people can see that benefit itself, to take a pause and just breathe in, breathe out, and do it. And he has it in a particular format that really works. And so these are elements that can help. First of all, women, as we talk about menopause, but anybody, literally, if you really want to stay healthy, these are all good things. There's nothing that we mentioned here that's bad for you, and actually probably even better because your pocket probably be also better because I don't think you'll spend more money buying a lot of stuff that you don't need. So there's financial gain there as well. But then, so now that leads me to the ultimate, piece of this whole concept, right? The exercise part. Is there any particular exercise that you recommend, or at least that you think, or a combination of exercises or forms of fitness, modules that you can share with us, with the audiences, especially women that are going through menopause or are in the post-menopausal stage?
Yeah, what I would say, I'm not a personal trainer, or I don't have a background or education in fitness. But however, what I would recommend to my clients, if I really think that they need a lot of help in that area, I would recommend them to a personal trainer to go and get advice, a personal trainer that specialises in, because there are personal trainers that specialise in menopausal midlife women. But one of the key things that you really need to look after is your bone health and your muscle health when we come into perimenopause, because of the effects that the lack of estrogen have. We lose muscle mass and we lose bone mass. And it's been shown in studies that, lifting, doing strength exercises is crucial for women as we get older, to really keep your bones strong. So I think with exercise, it's all about doing something that you enjoy and that you can fit into your routine. You don't have to go to a gym and spend hours there. As long as you're doing something that is that you're lifting things, you're doing strength training is key for maintaining muscles and bone mass. And also cardiovascular health, you need to do something to increase your pulse to make sure you have a good cardiovascular system. And again, that's finding something that works for you. It's been shown in research with exercise that doing high intensity exercise, short bursts of high intensity exercise are also very beneficial in moderation. You don't want to be working out too extreme, because that can have a detrimental effect. That can cause stress on the body, because estrogen is such a key hormone in muscle health, and it also has an effect on what we call the mitochondria, which it's like the energy part of the cell. So we can find when we come into perimenopause and menopause that we don't actually have as much energy. If you used to be able to go out running, all of a sudden you can feel like, what's happening? I don't have that same energy that I used to have. And that again, it is maybe down to, the estrogen declining. So I think strength training for muscle and bone health, key for menopausal women, very important. Go to a personal trainer or find some exercises that suit you. There's loads of things that you can do at home. There's great amounts of free information out on YouTube with personal trainers that can help you with that. And then finding something that increases your pulse as well, but do that in moderation.
Thank you, Alison. And I just wanted to ask you about a couple of things. One is, since you're talking about this, I mean, there is I guess, misconception maybe where, if you do lift weight, you're going to get too much muscle and you're going to be manly looking and all this stuff. Can we bust that myth out of here? Because, I don't think that's the case, but what's you work with people today, and what would you do? What would you tell people if they tell you, like, I don't want to, get so muscular because I'm going to do some lifting?
No, I mean, that doesn't happen. What we want to do is just to keep your muscles in good shape, keep them there. We're not building muscles. It's actually very difficult to build muscle. Very, very difficult. So that you will not build muscle if you're doing a strength training in a gym or at home. We're looking at keeping and toning and getting those muscles in good shape. And maybe you might get a little bit more definition on the body, but you're certainly not going to be like growing big muscles.
Good. Well, I get, because that's always like something like, one of the fears, like, well, I don't want to, I'm a woman, I want to look a certain look. And by the way, there's no specific look, because there are body, building, women, and they excel on that. But the average person may say, you know what, that's not how I want to look. I want, or, sometimes the opposite, they want to look like a model form, whatever. But there's that condition in there, in terms of how people do. And obviously they can do whichever way. But the idea is a fear of, like, I do cardio workout, I do everything else, but I don't want to lift weights. I think that's really the challenge where people get a little stuck on. Thank you for clarifying, because to your point, this is not about becoming, you're not going to go into one of those competitions and do like, the whole body, muscle, parts. This is about just toning the muscles, keeping them nice in shape and in strength and really robust enough to keep you. And you mentioned also bone. Now bone, how do we work on that? I mean, that's probably a question, like, how do I keep my bones strong? I mean, does the exercise itself work, or there's something else that I need to do? And that leads me also to a question about supplements. Do you have any, are you for, or are you against, or are there some advices that we can have on supplements on this in this particular case?
Yeah, bone health is crucial, and it's shown as women, as we get older, there's an increasing rate in osteoporosis. So we lose our bone density because estrogen is a key hormone for bone health. So doing strength training helps to keep the bones dense. Key. I mean, very, very important to do that. And as far as nutritionally wise, you want to be getting calcium, vitamin D, and vitamin K, and magnesium. You need to work on bone health. You need all these different minerals and vitamins. So getting them from food, I always say food first is best. Calcium is available in many green leafy vegetables, in dairy products, in fish. If you buy like tuna and all the smaller fish, mackerel, where you can actually eat the bones, brilliant source of calcium. Vitamin D can be a bit tricky to get through food. It's not actually available in many food sources. You can find small amounts in eggs and fatty fish. It's probably about the only supplement. I don't know what it's like where you live, Hurricane, but in Europe, it's in some European countries, the government actually recommends that people take a vitamin D supplement, because also where you're living, if you're living in a more of a darker climate, like I live in Sweden, and in the winter months, it's very dark. You can't produce the vitamin D that you need, because you can also produce it from sunlight. So vitamin D, crucial for many things, but bone health is one of them. And then vitamin K, they kind of all work together in synergy to keep your bones in really good shape. So just taking calcium supplements on its own is not something that I would recommend, because it doesn't really help to increase bone density, and it can be detrimental. So that's something that has been shown in research, that calcium supplements, aren't always recommended to people because of what the effects that they can have on the body. You have to, if you think of your body's like a very fine-tuned machine, and you really have to get all these vitamins and minerals in place in the right balance for them to have the effect that they need. So in answer to your question about supplementation, as a nutritional therapist, I would never recommend that people just wildly go out and buy an array of supplements, because you have to think, why am I taking them? What you don't know. If you're just taking supplements because you read or you saw on the television that this is good for this, but I mean, you don't know that you're deficient. So what I do with my clients is that we would always get all that testing done if I felt that maybe that was needed. And then if you see that you're deficient in any of these supplements, then of course that's okay. But supplementation can put unnecessary stress on your body depending on what supplements you're taking. So it's an area that I would be very careful about. And obviously the quality of supplementation that people take, there's a huge range in the quality of supplements. Some of the supplements you can buy, that if they say that they contain this amount of this ingredients, and when they're actually looked at, they don't really contain any of it. So it's a huge market, supplementation. There's a lot of money involved in it. So you really have to be careful what you buy, and buy, if you're going to take supplementation for whatever reason, then buy a very good quality one.
Thank you for sharing. I mean, that's a lot of powerful stuff that you just shared there, because again, the reason I'm asking is that just to clarify for people, because sometimes people do get confused about this, and you're right, people will take stuff just because it's there and they just keep taking it, but they may not be deficient. Maybe they overdose on those things and can have some adverse reactions. And I love what you said about, recommending to go to a doctor first before anything else, to ensure that, you have some testing to see what areas you need to work on. I mean, in physicals, for example, typically they look at vitamin D and B12, and those are, good ones that usually are being looked at. I mean, obviously, if you want to do a more thorough count of all your vitamins and stuff, there is definitely more stuff that can be done. But I appreciate the way you do it. I mean, it's not like, this is not a blanket, everybody's, going to be the same. Everybody is separate and individual, and you have to deal with them uniquely and make sure that it's really tailored to their needs. Thank you so much for that. So we've talked about nutrition, we've talked about the little bit of exercise, and we talked about the health. And you mentioned, by the way, I'm sorry, you mentioned something about the vitamin D specifically, and you're right. I mean, obviously, if you're in an area where there's more sun, you have more access. If not, definitely you want to compensate. And I think here in the States, even though we have a lot of sun, I think even here there's a known fact that there is a deficiency in vitamin D across. So I don't think this is just in Europe. I think probably in some areas more than others, but certainly this is something that is standard across all different areas around the world, and at least the northern hemisphere, I think, is all the same. So well, thank you. So now we talked about all this. Is there anything in our lifestyle that could also change the outcomes here and help women during the menopause and the postmenopause stage?
Yeah, lifestyle is, stress we've spoken about, that's key. Sleep, you can really find as you go into perimenopause and menopause that your sleep can be affected, because if you suffer from hot flashes, you can have what we call night sweats, where you wake up in the night and you're sweating, and this can really interrupt your sleep patterns. And that sleep is so, as we know, how beneficial sleep is for us. It's so beneficial for health. So if you find that you're waking up during perimenopause and menopause, you really need to think, okay, I'm going to get some support. I'm going to really get something done about this, because it kind of has a knock-on effect if you're not sleeping. It's like a vicious circle, because if you're not sleeping, it affects our hunger hormones. There's two hunger hormones, one called ghrelin and one called leptin. Leptin is our satiety hormone, and that's what tells our body when we've eaten that, okay, I'm satisfied now, you can stop eating. Whereas ghrelin is the hunger hormone. That's kind of what makes your stomach growl and tells you to eat. And lack of sleep, and also the combination of lack of sleep and the decline in estrogen, can affect these hunger hormones, and they can start being unbalanced. So you can be very hungry, and you're not getting the satiety hormone telling you to stop eating. So you can find that your appetite can increase a lot if you're not sleeping. You can be irritable, you can be moody, and you also crave carbohydrates. You really do crave sugary things the day after if you haven't slept. So sleep is certainly something that you really need to think about. And also, I think, on talking about lifestyle, really being kind to yourself and taking small steps, realizing that you can't do everything at once. Think, okay, I'm just going to, for example, for the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to drink water every day, because the majority of us don't drink enough water. I think what I see with my clients is that you have to make small habit changes. Otherwise, if you try and overhaul everything in one go, it's not going to work, because we'll do it for a bit and then we lose motivation and then we go back to our old habits. So really just doing small little things to put in place that that you can sustain and do. Otherwise, it's a disappointment, isn't it? That you try something and then you're going back to your old habits. So it's difficult. It is difficult to change habits. We all think that, but you really, a good tip for habit changing is to tag, if you're trying to do a new habit, to tag it onto a habit that you already do. So to make that clear, for example, if we say brushing our teeth, that is something that we automatically do, and we would never miss doing it, would we? That is a proper ingrained habit. So say, for example, you wanted to start doing some press ups. Your goal is you're going to do 10 press ups every day. If you incorporate that into the brushing the teeth, okay, I'm going to do 10 press ups every day before I brush my teeth. And it's been shown in research that kind of tagging a new habit onto an old one, it works much better. When you go and put the kettle on in the morning, if you're having coffee or tea in the morning, while the kettle's boiling, if you've got some weights in the kitchen or whatever, do some sit-ups on the kitchen floor while the kettle's boiling. It works. It's really fascinating habits.
I love that. I mean, thank you. That's actually a great tool to use. I mean, for everybody watching and listening right now, I think we can do a lot of things in our life if we tag them to something, to your point, that we do on a routine basis. So this is like, thank you for sharing that, because I think I'm going to use that thing myself here. So I think I'd start me. But so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you, but it was just like so much fun to hear it. So go ahead.
No, I think habits are fascinating. That's something that I work with a lot with my clients, because it's all very well, telling people what, it would be good if we did this for you. It'd be good, but it's actually doing it that is the hard part. People need the support to keep this habit change or lifestyle change in place, because that's what it's all about, really, isn't it? It's about changing the way we behave to incorporate new, healthier lifestyle habits that will increase your happiness or weight management or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve in life.
Well, thank you, Alison. And I think with all that also ties into like the cadence or the how you apply these things, and because you can't go crazy on these things and changes overnight, because that's not going to work. Because again, this is a long-term commitment. This is not something you're going to do like everything else. If you do it only briefly and it's not going to get the results, and even if you see results, they're going to go back to where they were or worse. The idea is that you have to maintain this on an ongoing basis. Now, is there an exercise, something that can help people maybe to or to plan, their days, weeks, months, and and just have these things in place for them, that you have seen actually in work.
Yeah, small steps definitely is, don't try to do everything at once. That is really key, because if you do it, you just be overwhelmed and you'll stop doing it. So one thing that is very useful when we're talking about nutrition is to do keep a food diary, because then you can actually see what you're eating. It's actually quite fascinating for people to see what they're eating, because you don't really, you're not really aware of what you're eating. But when you write it down every day, you can think, gosh, did I eat that? Did I eat that? And you have to be truthful when you write it down. So writing down what you eat, a food diary, is a very good way, because that it's written down there. And also writing like a journal, like a lot of people write what we call a gratitude journal, or a journal of what you've done for yourself that day. Because that, when you see that, it actually makes you feel good, and you think, yeah, I managed to do that today, I'm going to do that again tomorrow. It's all about small steps, because small steps lead to big results, and realizing that you can't overhaul your whole life in a week. It's a lifestyle change. I'm going to live my life so I have a happy next phase when we go into postmenopause. And that's my choice, and that's what I'm going to do. I think you obviously have to be you have to decide you're going to do this and be motivated to do it. But, you have to realize that you're worth it. You want to have a healthy, happy life.
Well, you do. I mean, technically, if you're not healthy, life doesn't matter really. You want to live that vibrant and enjoy every single moment, and be able to do things. I mean, some people, they have kids and they can't manage the kids eventually because they can't possibly, their energy level is low and things like that. So that changes. They can't even do. I mean, maybe at work it's affecting them. Maybe a relationship is affecting them. There's many things that can be, impacted with how the decision is made, and who is going to be impacted by that decision. So thank you for really emphasizing on that commitment part, and being able to really understand this is for you, and if you're good, everybody around you is good.
That's true.
And I guess the outcome of that will be like everybody is enjoying being with you and life gets better. But I think you focused on a key element of mindset, because this is also, it's all about how you see yourself, where you want to see yourself, and how you can make those shifts that are necessary to get you, and I love what you said about writing it down, because you're right. If we don't see it, out of mind, out of sight, out of sight, out of mind, this is exactly the same. But if you see it every day now, oh my God, this is like, I'm doing, and you can see graph, like you can even graphically, see like your improvements. I'm here, I'm doing more and more. So, and then eventually it gets to a point where you are in a routine mode, and that's really where you want to be. So Alison, I know we're almost coming up to the end of the show here. You do work across the globe, I guess, so how can we have people reach out to you if they need to get advice and work with you?
Yes, the best way really to reach out to me is via my website, which is alisonbladh.com. On the website, I have a resources page with lots of free downloads. We were talking about the Mediterranean diet, for example, and I've got a meal plan and recipes, and really giving you some ideas of how to get going with everything that I've spoken about. So, if your listeners want to download anything there, then feel free. If anyone wants to contact me, if anyone has any questions, then my email address is on my website. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. And I also offer free what I call discovery calls, where I can talk to you and really, discuss your health goals and give you advice on how we can move forward with that. And I'm on all social media platforms. If you look for Alison Bladh, you'll find me.
All right. Well, listen. Again, the website link will be on the description show, so people can reach out to you directly. And certainly, listen. I mean, you are providing a service, and you're helping people one day at a time, one person at a time. And there's a need for that. And I think sometimes we don't know where to who do we reach out to, and hopefully, our platform here and your accessing having access to you will help some folks around. And again, I'm assuming again through Zoom, right? So this is easy to do with anybody, and so technology makes it a lot easier these days. So I it's always appreciated. Well, so any last advice for today's show?
I would say to women that embrace this next phase of your life. Don't I always try to get my clients and when I talk to women to not be negative about perimenopause, menopause and postmenopause, because it is a total natural process. Every single woman in the world will go through this, but you don't have to suffer. Suffering is not a natural process. So ask for help, ask for support, get the information that you need so you can really improve your health and embrace this next period of 30 plus years and enjoy yourself. Go out there and have fun.
That is the greatest advice that we can have. I mean, thank you, for sharing that, and really have fun. Life is worth it. You're worth it. So, Alison, as always, it's a true pleasure, and always learning new stuff, and it's an engaging, discussion. And I think we've covered a lot of ground with people. So, ladies out there, now we have the expert. You have some of the expertise, at least the headlines and the topics that you need to look into it. Please reach out to Alison and see how she can help you, be better and go through this phase and really just prevail and succeed through it and be happy and healthy. That being said, folks, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm Hurricane Age. We'll be talking soon. New day, new show, new topic, new guest. Bye.